Hi, welcome to Healing the Workplace, a collaboration between Heal Magazine and Lodes, where we explore how people are navigating work, identity, and mental health in times of uncertainty. I'm your host, Selma Lemsadi, and my co host is Axelle Ahanzo. Our guest today is Kimberly Fuqua, Senior Executive, Speaker, and Leadership Advocate with nearly 30 years in the tech industry. As Director of Customer Experience for Microsoft's EMEA region, she leads strategies that help global organizations turn ambition into meaningful impact. She's also the founder of Luminous Leaders, where she supports executives and emerging leaders in owning their narrative, building confidence, and leading with intention. Kimberly has spent nearly 30 years inside one of the fastest moving industries in the world. And what she's learned, maybe surprisingly, isn't really about technology at all. It's about what keeps people human as everything around them accelerates. And that's what we're getting into today.
Lovely to have you with us, Kimberly. You've been talking about the VUCA world, so volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world, long before it became a buzzword. What does living inside that actually look like in a large organization like Microsoft day to day?
Yeah, it's one of those things I think you have to look back on because when you're in it, you're just trying to survive it and trying to not only survive, but in many cases thrive because we know that we're in tech careers where we want to do our best. We want to see our careers progress. But I would also say that over time, what you learn is being thoughtful, taking moments for yourself, thinking about radical self care, and actually putting that first will help you to survive the VUCA world a lot better. Initially, I did not understand that. And I ran around like crazy trying to keep up with it, lots of stress. Thankfully, I exercised a lot to try to relieve some of that stress.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when my son was diagnosed with autism, and I made the decision to leave Microsoft when my career was at a very high point. I was a strong performer. I was consistently delivering results, but my family needed me. And I made the choice at that point. I was raised to understand the family first, especially your children, very important. And when I made that choice to leave, I think that actually helped me to reset my brain so that when I came back a year later, I was negotiating in the right way. And I ended up negotiating being able to work fully remotely from home. And this is back in 2008. So everybody wasn't doing that. So 100% remote, limit my time away from my family. So I only had to do 2 business trips a year. And I got a promotion. So, and there was an autism benefit that Microsoft offered in the US. So I got a lot out of taking a step back, putting my family first and prioritizing first things first, and also demanding more from the company given the amount that I was willing to give of myself and my talent. So that's what I think everybody should at least take some time to think about in a VUCA world.
So you went back to your core values. You're speaking about family,
Yeah.
taking care of your children, and how
Yes.
this guided you in a time of uncertainty, of novelty, like the finding out your son is autistic, and prioritizing that to be able to show up better in your career as well.
Yes.
You've been in this environment for nearly 30 years, right? So, what feels different about uncertainty now compared to earlier in your career?
Definitely say speed. Speed, speed, speed. So everybody will talk about from the time that I started at Microsoft, how you have to be able to keep up, how everything's going, so fast. But now, compared to 30 years ago, it's a completely different level of speed and moving fast and keeping up. It feels almost like I would say hour by hour, maybe that's an exaggeration, but definitely every day there's something new to learn. There's some way you need to be curious. There's something that you need to understand that was different from the day before. So I would definitely say speed. It's only gotten faster. And I think that the challenge is, humans evolve. I believe in evolution, but I also understand that we don't evolve as fast as our technology is evolving. So that's the issue, that we're creating technologies now that are fantastic. They're amazing. They can do things so much faster than we humans can do on our own. But there's a concern for me that there's an importance of keeping up with that in order to keep humans in the center. Because I think if we let the technology get too far out in front of us, there's a danger that we lose part of our humanity. And so I would say speed and not being able to keep up. Those are the two things that I think about on a daily basis.
Yeah. You're highlighting as well how technology plays a key role in that speed. We often hear the phrase, every company is a tech company now. What does that mean in practice for the pace people work at and the pressure they carry?
Yeah, I think in practice, two things you have to do. You have to be curious and you have to be willing to keep learning. The time, I think about my parents and the time that they grew up in. My parents are 79 years old now. So they've been retired for, 15 years or so. And, back then it was like, okay, fax, even computers it wasn't new 15 years ago, but not nearly at the level of technology that we have today. So, curiosity and having to learn things constantly was not a part of what they had to do on their jobs. Thankfully for me, I had parents who taught me that my entire life. My entire life, they were like, if I had a question about something, and back then, this is like really old school, but we had encyclopedias. You guys probably don't even remember this.
Oh, I do.
Do you? Oh my. Okay. So my dad would say, oh, you want to understand, about what Charles Darwin had to say about evolution, speaking of evolution, go look it up in the encyclopedia. So we were always, myself, I have two younger brothers, we were always encouraged to be curious and to take initiative. And that would be the third thing. So be curious, keep learning, and take initiative. Don't wait. If there's a way for you to do it, on your own or in connection or in collaboration with people who are looking to help you and serve you. And that's something else maybe we'll get to. You need to be very careful about who's in your network. And if those people are acting in a way that is in your benefit and to the benefit of the group, versus the opposite of that. But you need to be able to take initiative, like waiting for someone to give you something or waiting for someone to do it for you. I think in the world where every company is a tech company, and to some extent that is very, very true. Even if you think about hospitals, even in a hospital where still you need a lot of people, you still need nurses, you still need doctors, obviously, and technicians and things like that. Guess what? They're all using technology. And the only way that they can really serve the number of patients and the complexity that these patients bring into their environment is through technology. And what do they have to do? They have to be curious, they have to keep learning, and they have to take initiative. Yeah. So those three things apply even with, and maybe even more so in areas where humans are still priority and still should, let's say, take precedence over what we need to do from a technology standpoint. So yeah.
This nuance you're making is also kind of like highlighting the complexity of technology in our lives, right? Like we need it to be more effective, to be more productive, to create better results, better products. But at the same time, it's speeding up our lives, and then it also disconnects us from ourselves.
Yeah, I think what's very ironic about this is that we've never had more tools to help us manage, the pressures and uncertainty. We have more apps, more automation, more ways to stay connected, and yet so many people feel worse than ever.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd like to go there with you. You said something that stayed with me, that what we thought would make our lives easier is actually making it harder. Why do you think that's happening?
Yeah, so let's go there. What I believe is that for everything that you want to do or everything that's good, there's a balance. There's always trade-offs. And I think that humans have to start being more intentional about what those trade-offs are. So if I think back to your question, yeah, it is making our life easier, but it's making it harder for us to connect. It's making it harder for us to understand ourselves.
Mm.
It's making it harder for us to not be, doom scrolling and going on these dopamine rushes.
Yeah.
Because there is something about humans where when it's making our brain feel good, like comfort food. I'll speak for myself. I love frites and patat in the Netherlands, but not good for me to eat that every day. It feels good when I'm first eating it, but then I know that there are consequences for me eating it every day, so I don't. And it's the same thing with when you get on Instagram or any of these platforms or even video games. I know people who spend 16 hours a day playing video games. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, this is wasted potential. Nothing wrong with video games, but let's not overdo it. So, to some extent, I wouldn't say that technology is making our life harder. I think that our lack of discipline and our need for this kind of rush, this dopamine rush, is making it harder
Mm.
because we came into this with this almost this lack of discipline, right? I mean, we were like, wow, and we were told how great technology is. So a lot of people even went to school, to learn how to code and to learn computer science, and now some of these roles are going to become obsolete
Yeah.
because people were so focused on how great technology is. So I wouldn't necessarily blame it on technology. I would blame it more on our lack of discipline and ability to think before we act
And integrated, you mean?
and integrate it into our lives. It needs to be integrated. It certainly should not be your life. I think a lot of people, yeah, they focus their entire life on a screen,
Yeah.
and yeah, not healthy. That's not helping any kind of, definitely from a mental health standpoint. It's not a healthy thing to do, and so we need to realize that and find a way, if possible. I mean, I realize not everybody can, has the ability to have that discipline. Well, then that's when you need to leverage the resources around you to help you with that. And that's something else that we struggle with, right? Is making the right connections with the right people. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
not an
think I
easy
saw something the other day that said, like, in the beginning of the internet, we would, escape reality by going on the internet. But
answer.
nowadays, our reality is the internet, and we go to reality to escape the internet for a while.
That
And
sounds just like
yeah,
humanity.
and you're summarizing it perfectly. What do you feel like as a society we've lost, like socially, emotionally, spiritually? You already mentioned connection.
Yeah,
But what have we lost as a society as we have become more digital and screen based?
yeah. So I'm going to challenge that question a little bit because I don't think it's lost. Well, maybe it's not permanently lost. Let me
Mm.
say it that way. I think that we have been losing it. We've been losing because if you think about the fact that you get up in the morning, what's the first thing that many people do? They open their phone. they start working on the phone, right? They don't say good morning, hello to their family, or kiss their sweetheart, or go kiss their kids. The first thing they do is open the phone. And so I think that we lose if we don't take the time to be thankful and grateful for the things in our life. That's a big part of what we lose. Because when you're not thankful and grateful and you take things for granted, that's when you start to lose them. So I guess what I'm saying is we are losing them because of the actions that we're taking, not because they exist. These things exist and we put them in place to help us. Now, the question is, are we using them as a tool, or are we letting our lack of discipline and our lack of thoughtlessness take over, and then therefore let the machines run our lives? And I think we're losing it. We haven't completely lost it yet, but if we keep on the same path, it doesn't bode well. I guess I'm a optimist pessimist, right? So pessimist. I believe that we can do better and that we will do better, but I also think there's a time factor in there, and that sometimes, there's a point of no return on these things. And that's why I'm encouraging. I love this opportunity to have this platform, because I want to talk about it and let people think about it carefully. What is most important? Is it most important I get up in the morning and get on my phone and then go to, my laptop and work on that? And then after work, I get on Instagram and LinkedIn and I'm looking at that. Is that most important? Or is it most important to try to prioritize your family, the people you love, the friends you have, the connection? Now, if you're using your laptop, like I do sometimes, I schedule a meeting with my daughter who lives in Colorado. I'm in Amsterdam. Or I schedule a meeting with my family. That's a different story. That's when you're using it for a tool to connect. And I have to do that. And I think that's the beauty, that's the blessing of technology, that if we use it appropriately, it actually helps us to connect. The problem is, as humans, we have a tendency to go down a rabbit hole of using it in a way that becomes detrimental to us. And that's the red line I'm trying to urge people not to cross, or to go back across on the other side. They may have crossed it. Go back, So
Yeah, it's like this dopamine addiction
yes.
spiral that people go into. And
Yes.
and it just sucks you up. I have it so many times where I grab my phone because I want to look up something, but I get distracted by a message, and then I go on Instagram, and then 2 hours later I'm like, what happened? I went to look up something. And as you mentioned, we're more connected than ever, yet so many people feel just very profoundly alone, especially also at work.
Yes.
So there's this gap. And what do you think the cost is of this gap?
Yeah. Well, I work in a sales organization, and so I can tell you that the costs can be huge if you allow technology to take over. Because even with technology, and we're selling technology, that's what Microsoft does. We create and we sell technology. But even with that, do you think the person on the procurement person, or the head, the chief revenue officer, or the head of sales at any of our customers, do you think they want an AI robot to come sell them Microsoft technology? No, they want a person, and they want a human. And so I think that it's an interesting thing that, Selma, that you're asking, because I think in business, relationship is still king. We talk about technology all day long. I mean, AI, agentic AI, quantum computing, M365. I can name all the Microsoft technologies. But at the end of the day, they want to see a Kim, or they want to see a Tim, or somebody to come and talk to them. They don't want to talk to a robot. And you probably find this too, like when people call up customer service now, they don't want a chat bot. They want a real live person on the other end. So I think it's quite there's so many dichotomies, because like you say, our technology is making life easier, but it's making it harder for us to control ourselves, control that dopamine addiction, and really be disciplined. It's making it easier for us to do many things in our business lives, but it's making sometimes the business relationships harder to be concrete and in place. But at the same time, the more we use it, the more you start to see people kind of push back a little bit. I don't know if you recently, and I know my daughter won't mind me saying this, but Rachel, that's my daughter, she was talking about staying away from dating apps. And she said, yeah, many of my friends are doing the same thing. There are people that are staying away from dating apps, and now they're looking for what? Running clubs. They're looking to go play padel, together. They're looking for community. So on one end, I think technology is, yes, we all are a bit addicted, and we have to think carefully about not letting ourselves be into that dopamine rush. But on the other end, for people who feel that loneliness, I would encourage them to let them know that there are communities out there where you can connect and you can get back into collaborating with people and being able to see and talk with people. That is out there. And I think that's so important for you to, again, be curious, keep learning, and take initiative on for yourself and for your own mental health. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's
we're losing it, but it's not lost completely.
Yeah, human connection is so important. And I remember, like, in the pre-chat that we've had prior to this, podcast recording, you mentioned something that I found really interesting and striking. The idea that we are spiritual beings living a human experience, and that if one of those two things fall out of alignment, people start breaking down. Do you mind saying more about that?
Yeah. I was raised as a very religious person, not so much spiritual. And so I think this goes back to my own evolution through my life's journey. Mm-hmm. And what I discovered in that time, especially because my son has passed away now. My son that I said was diagnosed with autism, he died over 10 years ago now.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. No, it's okay. I'm very open about this because I believe, and I believe for a long time, that when you're open about these things, there are other people who can relate, right? Mm-hmm. And so I went through my own mental health journey in that. And what I realized is that a couple things. Number one, the only way that I was going to stay sane, having lost a child like that, was to tap into me, into what's here and what's real. And what's here and what's real is what's happening inside me. And also understanding that my son was a part of me, physically and spiritually. So that also helped me to understand that I was a spiritual person living a human or physical experience, because I still felt very close to my son, even though he was no longer on this earth. I still felt that closeness. Mm-hmm. So feeling that close, like, why am I feeling that? Why am I feeling that he's still, when he's not here? I miss him so much because his physical presence is not here. But spiritually, for me, he is a part of me. And that comes from that connection that we had where he was in the womb. And then also when, as he became his own person, and all the experiences that we had going through learning about his autism, going through treating it and the therapies and stuff like that, we were very, very close. And so that tie will not be broken. And I know that tie won't be broken because of the fact that we are spiritual beings living a physical experience. So I grew up religious, but eventually, and I still, just so you guys know, I still have I have a relationship with the Creator. I think that relationship has changed. But I have a relationship with the Creator. But the biggest part for me is understanding that there are some things that are just bigger than ourselves. And when we understand that there are things bigger than myself, my son's love and my love for him is bigger than this physical Kim that's sitting here right now. The impact that you, Selma and Axelle, want to bring to society, it's bigger than each one of the people that's on this call, than each of us. It's much bigger than that. The impact that I want to bring and having these conversations about technology, about human-centered existence, about focusing on what we can do better by being curious, learning, and taking initiative, all of that is bigger than who we are. And I think when you look for things that are bigger than yourself and you focus on things that are bigger than yourself, that actually makes you feel happier and better. It improves your mental state of being. So that's the way I see being spiritual and living this physical existence. There is so much more to life than, Kim, even though I like shopping and, putting my makeup on and all that. There's so much more to life than that. And that's a good thing. That makes me feel better, that it's not just me getting up in the morning, experiencing, eating and getting my hair done and all that. There's so much more that I can offer people. And somehow I think humans, and I might be really stretching here, but I actually think humans were made to connect and help each other feel better.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the main. Yeah.
Yeah, very powerful to connect to each other and I guess to the creator, to source that is, connecting us all. And
Yes.
I think you put that very beautifully into words.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When you were talking about, like the way we engage with those tools, like how we wake up, how people date and everything, it reminded me of a book I'm reading called The Art of Community by Charles Hogel, where he's talking about how the community, the experience of being in connection or in community has changed in a single generation for millennials, Gen Zs, and we have less people like to talk to, and social circles that have decreased by I think 1/3 compared to previous generations.
Wow.
And they were pointing out to this study that essentially says that loneliness is equivalent. So a lack of social relationships, of connections, is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Absolutely.
That's a study from 2010. So 15 cigarettes a day. So being alone and how these tools just make us look more and more and just being disconnected from one another is killing us in a way. And it's also affecting the quality of our relationships, right? And this is even more important because we are living longer, but we're more socially disconnected.
Can I even comment on that? Yes, everything you said, 100% agree. The other thing that these platforms do, we allow them to do, and that's something else. I think we need to take back control. Stop saying that they do it because we're allowing this. So that's another thing. I think there's a part of accountability here. The bigger point I want to make is, you know what these platforms do? They put you in an echo chamber. And they make you really focus on yourself. Confirmation bias, first of all, which can be very dangerous. So it makes you think that everything you think is right, because what do you get in your algorithm? You get things in your algorithm that confirm what you're already thinking about. So that echo chamber is very dangerous. The other thing is it makes you focus on yourself. Okay, so think about this. You're focusing on yourself. You're looking, maybe I do have too many wrinkles. Oh, maybe my eyebrows do need to be, my hair. Oh, my everything, I'm getting older. Oh, maybe I do need a new outfit. It's all about us. And as I said before, this is why that key to the spiritual being living a physical existence is so important to understand. And also that piece I said about connecting with other people. So if you're spiritual, all these spirits want to connect with each other, like you said, Axelle. And that's why being lonely is so dangerous. It's equivalent to smoking 15. When you said 50 or 50?
15 cigarettes a day.
Cigarettes a day. Exactly. Because we are allowing these technologies to help us focus on ourselves, which is not necessary, not in the right way. So
Mhm.
there's a way to focus on yourself that actually leads to more connection. But the way these platforms work, they want you to be so engrossed and so ingrained in what's going on negative about you, or perhaps how you compare yourself to other people that you think are doing better. That's another thing that happens, right? We see everybody post on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram about all the great things they're doing. But as humans, we don't talk about the mistakes we had, how we messed up that day, how we may have hurt somebody's feelings, or how we may have, had a car accident. Nobody talks about that. We don't talk about the mistakes. We just talk about the great stuff. So I think, yes, everything that you said is disconnecting us, but it's actually disconnecting us and making us more ego focused, more focused on who we are and comparing and all these negative things that happen when you go into yourself and don't connect outwardly, that it leads to loneliness, because then you just get more and more and more and more. It's about me. It's about me.
Yeah.
And it's not about you. As I said, I think we were built to connect.
Yeah. I think what you're describing really shows up in younger generations in particular, right? Because they've grown inside all of this, right?
Yes.
It's all they've ever known. And yet they're the ones who seem to be struggling the most. You made an observation that I found both striking and a little heartbreaking, that younger generations are extraordinarily good with technology and yet more burnt out than ever, more disconnected from themselves and others than ever. What's driving that in your view?
Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. Part of it is what you said, that they came out of the womb, with computers and screens and all of that around them. I remember I have two nieces that are 13 and 11. And I remember at 2 years old, they had an iPad. And I don't fault, their parents or anything like that. It's not a judgment thing, but because everybody had one, right? So you're what you grow up with and what you're exposed to continually is what you become. It's who you become. And so I think we have to remember that as parents, as people, as supporters of humanity, that we've got to remind people, start with the human connection. Don't start with the internet connection. Don't start with the screen. Start with looking your child in the face, start, and you can even start now, like you said, with the young people who are Gen Z. I think it's 50-50 for me, because I know lots of young folks who are, maybe, let's say in their mid-20s, later 20s, that are very much engaged and wanting to connect. And some of these communities I talk about, the running club and the padel club and the, you name it, that they're doing. But I also know some folks, like you said, that are really struggling to get out of their own way. And I think rather than maybe talking about what's causing it, I would say what I would recommend is, if we have people like that in our lives, if we see people like that going down that road, try to have a conversation with them, engage with them. Because I think the other thing that we do in this time is like, they'll figure it out. Instead of putting ourselves out there and doing what's necessary, at least doing what we can, let me say it that way, because you might not be able to do what's necessary, but doing what we can to re-engage them. I read something, I can't remember where I read it, but there was an author, I can't remember, it could have been Instagram actually, but that talked about, we say so many times to people, oh, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. And this author said, you know what? There are things you can do. There are things you can do. just do them, right? And so instead of kind of, I would say, performatively offering, yeah, if there's anything I can do, let me know. Do what you can, right? If you know someone's not feeling well, if you know someone is going through, I don't know, a death in their family, or a loss of a job, or a divorce, or disconnected, like you said, young people who are maybe disconnected and you haven't heard from them in a while, ring them up, call them up. Don't do WhatsApp. Don't do a text. Try to make the actual connection. And I started to do that in my life. Instead of asking the question of people, or putting the burden of help on the person that I want to help, because that's what you're doing when you say, well, you tell me how I can help you.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, when I know someone needs help,
yeah,
I just help. I help where I can.
So what do you actually observe in how young people communicate, how they cope, and how they quietly disconnect at work? What's particular about this generation?
Yeah, I don't want to overgeneralize, but I will say that I feel sometimes that people, younger people, are a bit more shy about saying what they think and what they feel. And I think some of that is because of the lack of connection, because of the lack of social interaction, especially when you're younger and you're growing up. Because, a lot of this, a lot of the way that, let's say, my ability to communicate or to get to know people and my interest in people, it came from me growing up around people and going out. I grew up in Chicago, South Side of Chicago. So for those of people who are listening and they know about the South Side of Chicago, double Dutch was a big thing. I think it's quite funny because I didn't know double Dutch actually came from the Netherlands. Okay, so I learned that. But I thought it was a South Side of Chicago thing when I was growing up. And double Dutch is when you have two ropes, and it's a rhythm thing. And I'm bringing this up for a reason. We learned how to play and get along and interact and speak our mind, but in a way that was diplomatic and helpful to the game and made it fun for everybody through playing these games, through double Dutch, through interaction, through hopscotch or whatever it was. Well, now you have a lot of young people, Axelle, maybe this goes actually back to your other question, who have not had that opportunity to interact and play. I remember when my son, we were going through autism assessments and things with them. And one of the things the doctors and the therapists said is that play actually helps you learn. Play is not just play. Like we think of play as having fun, but play is actually learning.
Yeah.
So I think that we're missing out on that for a lot of the young people. Yeah. And so what I see in the business place, in the workplace, is that they have difficulty building relationships and learning how to network because they didn't come up with that double Dutch plan, where you had to, wait a minute, it's my turn. No, it's my turn. You had to negotiate and all. They didn't have that.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's what practical lived experience.
It's a practical lived experience that you learn when you're younger, like little. I'm talking, I was probably 4 or 5 years old when I first started playing outside, hide and seek and double Dutch and hopscotch and tag and you're it and all these things. And we thought we were just having fun. We were actually learning how to develop and nurture relationships.
Yeah, there's a lot of value in play in working environments. Is quite some research pointing towards that as well. I love that angle actually. Kind of like how can we translate what we've learned from playing in group with others into this ability to communicate and kind of cope with work. What do you wish leaders understood better about the pressure younger employees are carrying right now?
Mm-hmm. I believe that there is like this generational bias. And every generation thinks that, it was better in my day. So I wish leaders, especially people my age, maybe around my age, maybe a little bit younger, a little bit older, that they would stop with that generational bias. because we also had our issues. I'm not saying life was perfect. I don't want to indicate that. So that's the first thing. Stop with the generational bias and thinking that somehow you're better. Each generation has its own issues to deal with and has its own challenges to deal with, but it's not I'm better than you because I didn't have technology growing up, or because I didn't have some of the, let's just say the easier things in life, or the easier path in life, or, some of the things that are, more automated, now than you did. I think, that's part of being older. You have a tendency to believe, well, we were better because we had it harder. So we had to work harder, and we know what work. And maybe that's the second thing, is that somehow we work harder and work better than young people. I know some young people that work super hard. But part of the problem, like we talked about before, is that they struggle with the ability to have the right relationships and to network. And therefore the visibility on their work is not seen. Mm-hmm. So I wish that leaders would focus more on, let me see what they're doing. Let me make sure I see what they're doing. And then once I see what they're doing and the value they're adding, let me amplify that. Yeah. Rather than saying, well, man, they don't look like they're working that hard.
So in a way, it's kind of asking leaders to be better allies to younger generations because they don't have the same level of power or like position in the hierarchy. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a great way to put it, to be active allies. And so again, that goes back to not just saying, well, I support them. No, what do you do to support them? Mm-hmm. How do you advocate for them? Do you seek them out? I think it's actually my responsibility as a senior leader within a large company like Microsoft to seek out young people. So just so you know, and I know he won't mind this as well, I have a reverse mentoring relationship with the earlier in career person at Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And so we started out where he wanted me to be his mentor. And then after a while, he was making me hip to what Gen Z and what the younger people were thinking about and talking about. Mm-hmm. We had a whole conversation, I think, about feedback. We talk about everything. But so I think we need to seek out relationships like that so that we can learn more, Axelle. I have this idiom in my head. I forgot who said it, but seek first to understand, then be understood. That's what leaders need to do. They need to seek first to understand, and then you'd be amazed at how much better you're understood as a leader and how much more you understand of the younger generation.
Yeah, which requires emotional intelligence, self-awareness as well. Yeah.
Emotional intelligence and investment. It requires a time investment. You can't sit in your ivory chair and, talk about what everybody is not doing. You got to get in the boat sometimes with people, get on the floor with people and see what's going on. How can I help? How can I learn? What do I need to be curious, keep learning about, and take initiative on? I'm going to keep coming back to those three things because I think they're so key in order for me to make sure that I get the best out of the people in this organization. Because look, we hired these people. We spent time, and I'm saying we in the general sense, we spent time and money and effort. That's an investment to hire young people. And then, to sit and watch them, and to judge them, I think is really a wasted investment. That's my belief. You got to get in there with them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people listening will recognize themselves in what you're describing, and frankly, I think a lot of people feel stuck at the moment. You talk a lot about prioritizing impact over volume, and you structured your own life around that. Can you walk us through what exactly that looks like in practice?
Yeah. So again, this comes with overtime, learning over time. Because when I first started, at Microsoft, it was all about what's the number of things I can do? Well, what's the number of activities that I can complete in a day, in a week, in a month, in a quarter?
Yeah.
And then we changed. I think Microsoft actually helped me with this because we changed the way that we incented people. And it became a lot less about what's the tick, 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 tick activities you do and what actual impact did it have. Because what I've learned is you can do a lot of things, activities. I could spend my whole day doing activities, but are those activities actually changing or impacting or affecting the goal that we have? Is it getting us closer to the goal? Is it moving us forward? Because if you do a bunch of stuff and you're still, at step one, and you've done all these things over the quarter, but you're still at step one, what's the point? You've wasted time. So I think to me, that's impact over volume, right? That and even in our regular lives, everyday lives, we can do a lot of things. I use the lifting weights example, right? That because there used to be a time in my life, I've always been into working out, at least for the past, let's say, 25 years or so. And there used to be a time in my life when I would lift, let's say, half a kilo, 1 kilo weights. And I could lift 20, do it 20 times. But what impact did it really have? Now I've learned that I don't have to spend an hour lifting, little tiny weights. I can just spend 30 minutes lifting heavy weights. And the impact is so much, I can see it. I can literally see it. Whereas before, I was making my arms tired, but I wasn't building muscle. Now I lift heavy weights and just 30 minutes, I can see the difference. And I think it's the same thing with the workplace, that if you can spend, let's say you work, and I'm just making this up. I'm not saying everybody should do this, but let's say on Fridays, you say, you know what, I'm going to stop at 2 p.m. But from 8 to 2, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, these 3 things that are going to move the needle forward on my goal. I think that's a lot better of a time investment than you spending from 8 to 5 every day and checking off boxes and your goal hasn't moved 1 inch. So always check the work that you invest and the time you invest against the progress towards your goal.
I love that. I love that so much. And for people who are maybe more junior in their roles, who might not have that same level of flexibility of, quitting earlier on a Friday or having to choose and pick, what are realistic small ways that they can apply this idea that you're describing, even inside a rigid organizational structure?
Yeah. So I think every organization now is focused on learning. I don't, at least I haven't come across any organization, customer, client, vendor that works for Microsoft that's not focused on learning. And that will always get you, I think, if you have to stay, let's say, you've got to work from 8 to 5, you got to be busy. Maybe you've done the actual work products and work things that you need to do to make the impact, but you got to work long or be on the clock longer. Find something that you can do to learn. There's always something, even if it's meaning to meet with one of your colleagues. I find that, and I don't know about the two of you, but I find that in many of the corporate workplaces, there's a lack of collaboration. And a lot of it is because people don't know each other anymore. It's not like, we recently had this come back to the office initiative at Microsoft. And on one end, I was like, I don't want to have to go to the office and drive through Amsterdam traffic and Netherlands traffic. But on the other end, I get it, right? Because they want people to start coming back together to connect so that they collaborate better together. Because there is nothing that I've done at Microsoft that I haven't done with someone else or on a team. Nothing at all. So I think that that would be my tip to people. Either learn about things on your job that you need to know better, learn about soft skills, what they call soft skills. I think they're power skills, about how you can speak to people better, build relationships more, understand emotional intelligence, understand cultural intelligence. There's so many things that you can learn, or learn about your colleagues, get to know them, book a one-on-one, with a mentor, get to know your skip level, right? And I say skip level, I mean your manager's manager. There are so many things that you can do, and so many ways that you can leverage that time. If you need to stay at work and you've done everything that you can do at that point, like on your own, there's so many other things you can do to advance and grow and develop who you are, so you get closer to your own personal goals. Was that too much?
Yeah,
No, that was perfect.
yeah. No, I love that reframe of learning. I'm also thinking of the leader's side of this, right? You can model it yourself, and that matters. But what about the people you're watching struggle, the ones where you can see it happening and you're not sure what to do? I think you had mentioned when we were preparing this episode a story of someone you cared about and that works with you, who they're working themselves into illness, to quote. What are the early signs leaders tend to miss or overlook when someone is overextending themselves?
Yeah. I think it's different for every person, but some things that I've seen that are made multiple times, I'll say it that way, is when people are frustrated often, and they're frustrated by what may seem like little things. So you look for that. I believe as a leader, you should be, so first of all, for the people who are reporting to you, whether that be managers and managers, whatever, depending on what level you are, you need to be connecting with them on a regular basis. So I'm always a little bit skeptical of managers who don't have one-on-ones with the people that report to them. That's number one. So leaders, no matter what level you are, you should be having a one-on-one regularly with the people on your team, whether that be, once every other week, once a month. I know it's hard sometimes to fit in, but do that. Second thing is checking in with people on their personal life. And I don't mean getting, nosy and trying to find, but when I ask people how they're doing, I ask them, what's been the most important thing that's happened to you in your life, period, this week? I want to know
human connection again.
Yes, how were they, human connection, and how were they doing personally? Because here's the real deal. You are not going to work well and be your best self at work if personally things are out of whack. Those two things, as much as people say, well, there's my work self and there's my home self.
Yeah, this uncertainty we're speaking of also, uncertain world, uncertainty in general. Yeah, it's both in private and professional spheres indeed. Yeah.
Absolutely. And those two things intersect and they impact each other. And you can't, maybe some people think that they can separate who they are at work with who they are at home, but I haven't seen that be true. So when I'm looking for signs, I'm looking for, how are you doing at home? How are your kids doing? Is everybody okay? Are you feeling okay about how they're feeling? Right? Are you steady there? Because if you're not steady there, it's going to be very difficult for you to be steady at work.
And then that requires a certain level of psychological safety with the manager in the interaction you have with your direct report and within the organization as well.
You know how you do that? One of the ways that I think is, I've seen it work with the people who I've reported to and the people who report to me, is you got to be vulnerable about who you are and what you're going through. Now, there's, you do have to be careful because you're in a corporate environment and you don't want to like spill all the beans about which of your manager peers you don't like or anything like that. But you can be honest about, you know what, I'm also struggling. I had to write this report and it was tough. Or I had to get on this meeting, late last night with the people in Seattle, and I really didn't want to get on the meeting at 10 o'clock at night. Like, you can be honest and open and vulnerable to an extent
Yeah.
And when you do that, like what you said, Axelle, that's role modeling,
Yeah.
being open, honest, authentic to a point. I'm always very careful with that, because you also have to watch the level of vulnerability that you expose people.
Yeah.
Not everybody can handle every level of vulnerability.
Yeah. It comes with boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So at Microsoft, you mentioned that there are many employees that don't even know what support their company offers when it comes to well-being.
Yeah.
Why do you think that happens, and how can leaders change that?
So I think it happens because of information overload.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at my email and I just throw my hands up like, yeah, I'm going to have to definitely use Copilot to figure out. Shout out to Copilot there, but definitely use some other tool to figure out what's a priority there. Because if you're getting hundreds of emails a day, it's very hard. You'll miss that little Microsoft benefits email that talks about, you can go to Spring Health, or you can go to some agency to get, free therapy. You're going to miss it. So it's information overload. It's just too much of work, of, what you can do as an employee at work, at what you have to know to do your job well at work. It's a lot. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is sometimes people don't know because they don't need it until they need it. Right? They don't think about it until
the turning point.
Now, exactly. Now I need it, right? It could have been told to them in multiple ways, and, through email, through, seminars and HR, your new employment orientation, but it went whoop over your head because at that point you didn't think you needed it. And then you need it and you go, uh-oh, I don't know. What do they offer? How do I find this out? That's another way technology is helpful. I know at Microsoft, we now have an AI agent where you can ask those kind of questions. So that's where technology can be helpful to kind of distill the information that you need, so you get the information that you need when you need it. But I think leaders can be powerful in that, in actually doing that, knowing as much as they can about what is available in the company. There's so much benefit to working for a company for a long time. Now, of course, we bring in managers that perhaps haven't worked at Microsoft before, and so they're new. But I think for me, especially people like me who have worked at a company for 15, 20 years, use that knowledge and try to key in on what you think would help other people, and not always just what would help you. We have a thing called model coach care at Microsoft, and that's what managers should do. They need to model what it looks like to be the best employee. They need to coach, and that means knowing the people that's reporting to you as much as you can, and being vulnerable, modeling that, but also being vulnerable and coaching them through what they have, but also really care. If you really care about people, you're going to be listening not just for what will help you. You're going to be looking for in your email and listening in the manager forums. We get manager updates on a regular basis. You're going to be looking for things that will help other people, not just help yourself.
Yeah. There's actual research from Oxford's Wellbeing Research Center that found recently, I think it was like less than 2 years ago, that most standard well-being initiatives like yoga sessions, resilience trainings, don't meaningfully improve employee well-being and may even cause harm in some cases. The one exception was giving people opportunities for charitable or volunteer work, pointing to purpose and genuine connection as what actually moves the needle. Based on your experience, does that resonate? And what have you actually seen make a difference?
Well, we're taking it like this whole conversation is going full circle.
Yeah.
That goes back to what I said about thinking about something greater than yourself. Again, if you're giving to other people, if you're looking for charitable organizations where you can volunteer your time and effort and use, because let's face it, we all have most of us, especially those in the Western world today, we have some level of privilege. So if you're using that privilege, using that opportunity that you got that maybe other people did not receive, and you're giving that out, yeah, that's going to make you feel better. That's going to have an impact on your mental health. That's going to have an impact on your well-being, because I think there's also proven, I don't have, like, you're great, Axelle, with the research. I don't have the names of these research organizations, but I know there's been research done that says that people who give of themselves, give volunteer time, give their money, give their, what they have at home, whatever, give of themselves and give what they have, they're happier people. They are much happier people. And so, yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense to me that is a way that you can be more mentally healthy by giving of yourself and volunteering. Yeah. And by the way, there's many ways to do that. At Microsoft, we have a platform called Benevity. It's probably used at other companies as well, where you can volunteer your time. When you volunteer your time, you can, the organization you volunteer your time to gets 25, I think it's 25 US dollars or 25 euro per hour that you volunteer.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
It's awesome. And so I think for people listening to this, think about giving. And I think it was an excellent point, Axelle. Think about giving in that way, giving your time, giving your money. But what's the cool thing is you don't have to give your money and they still get money. You give your time and they get money. So
I love that. Yeah, I think what is and at the center of all of this is connection, right? Like what we started with this conversation, connection. We're coming back to that. And I think connecting with your colleagues over something like community service or volunteering, even inside of the company, can be very beneficial. In my own career, I feel like the places where I felt the most fulfilled as an employee were places where I had really close connection with my coworkers.
Yeah.
Or like, I had like a work wife or, someone who I was really, really close to. And I felt really like safe and seen inside of that workplace. And you get those kind of relationships sometimes through like workplace trauma.
Yes.
Sometimes also through like doing this meaningful work, which I did, of course, a lot in my impact work and NGO work. You develop these really deep relationships that make also your work feel more, how do you say that? Like rewarding or what's the word for it?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect word. Rewarding,
exactly.
and more fulfilling for you.
Yeah, more fulfilling, exactly, yeah. And you mentioned something earlier that I would like to briefly circle back to. You developed a framework around 5 anchors.
Oh, yeah.
Identity, purpose, courage,
community, and resilience.
Exactly. Can you maybe briefly walk us through it?
Yeah. So, identity. You need to really understand who you are and where you're going before you can lead anybody else. So how do you do that? I mean, there's multiple ways to do that. But, again, being curious about yourself, learning about yourself, and taking the initiative to, dig deep, be introspective, take some time away from screens and just think about who you are and what your purpose is. So that's identity. You need to know who you are and where you're going and where you want to go in your life, whether that be with your work, family, I don't know, your next vacation, what you want to learn about, but you have to have those 2 things. And that, to me, that comprises identity. Purpose. I think everybody has a purpose forget think. I know that every person has a purpose for being here. You would not be here if you didn't have purpose. And that goes back to my belief about spiritual beings living a physical existence. There's a reason why we're living this physical existence. And that purpose may change, by the way. So you might start out your purpose like me. I had my kids. I think I was here to help guide my children, through their childhood, to help guide my son through the autism. And I learned a lot in the process I think he was here to help me learn a lot.
Yeah.
So you have to have there's a reason. But then that changed. Then I got the opportunity to come over here to the Netherlands, and I discovered that there's so much work that perhaps my experience can bring to helping people here in the Netherlands, but also in Europe. So you got to have a purpose. There's a reason why you're here. It changes over time, is my belief. Courage. It's hard to get up in the morning unless you have courage. You got to believe and be brave, like, oh, I got to face another day. I don't know about the two of you, but sometimes I'm like, I just want to stay in bed. I don't want to stay in the fetal position. But you got to have that courage to want to get up and get going, and also get out of your comfort zone. I'm always trying to find a way. How do I challenge myself? How do I challenge myself? I recently had two talks that happened. One was on the 6th of March. One was on the 8th of March. And I was like, how am I going to, because I also believe in doing talks like without notes. I need to get it in my head and really believe it and feel it and have it become a part of me. And I was like, how am I going to do that 2 days apart? And one of them was a TED talk. I was like, oh, I'm going to challenge myself. So you got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to have the courage to do that. Community. The only way I can do those first three things is if I have people helping me. I've got my husband. I've got my daughter. I've got my mom and dad. They're all far away. Look, not my husband. My husband's here. But my family, other than my husband, and my stepkids are here. But much of my family is far away. But I have community. Community doesn't necessarily mean, it could mean your neighbor, but it means the people who you care about and who care about you and who are going to serve the best in you and bring out the best in you. So you got to have community. And then resilience, people talk about resilience. Oh, you bounce back. I've never bounced back to where I was. I've always, when I've gone through a difficult time, it's taken some time, depending on what it is, but I bounce forward. I go to the next step, the next thing, the next level, the next version of Kim.
That's a quote there.
Yeah. Those are my 5 things: identity, purpose, courage, community, resilience. If you can think about those things and apply them in your life, I think it will make you better.
I love that. You're saying like not bouncing back, but bouncing over to the next version of yourself, basically.
Yeah, baby.
Okay.
So as we close, I want to ask you if someone who is listening to this episode feels overwhelmed, disconnected, or close to burnout right now, what is one shift they could make this week to feel more grounded?
They feel close to burnout right now.
Mm-hmm. Overwhelmed, disconnected.
I would recommend that they put 5, and I've done this before, I haven't done it recently. Schedule in, just put into your calendar 5 minutes to just be. Don't worry about mindful meditation. Don't worry about anything. Try to clear your mind and just be. Just sit or lay, just be for 5 minutes every day. What I think that will do is, because what our mind typically does, it either thinks about what happened or what is going to happen in the future. That's where our mind goes. Being present is something that we are not able to do well. And because we're always thinking about what happened, what I could have done better, what went wrong, or we're thinking, oh my gosh, I got so much to do and it's going to happen tonight, tomorrow, next week. It busies our mind and it adds to whatever burnout that you're dealing with right now. If you take that 5 minutes just for yourself, don't think about the past, don't think about the future, just think about the now. And maybe even think about being grateful for what you have right now in that moment. I think that would really help. It would make you, just for a few minutes, get away from all the things that are running around in your mind and causing that level of stress and burnout.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. What strikes me most about this conversation is that Kimberly, you really give us, you didn't just give us a shortcut, right? You gave us something harder and more honest. The idea that staying grounded in uncertainty isn't a technique you apply, right? It's a practice. It's knowing who you are, why you're here, applying what you learn when you connect with others, and having the courage to keep coming back to that, right? Even when everything around you is shifting. Kimberly, thank you so much for your honesty, your warmth, and for showing us what it actually looks like to lead, not from a place of having it all figured out, but from a place of being deeply, intentionally human.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you both,
Kimberly.
ladies, Selma and Axelle. Wonderful. I really enjoyed the conversation.